I am Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. What, if anything, was achieved at COP24? Why was this Imam told not to come to work at the mosque he's been at for 22 years? And the real-life Paw Patrol, Australia style. Well, at the top of our newsfeed, COP24. Now, what was achieved at the climate conference? The two-week talks are set to end today, and the UN has issued grave threats that will affect, but will anyone who's listening be able to affect what's going on in the future?
To waste this opportunity in Katowice would compromise our last best chance to stop runaway climate change. It would not only be immoral, it would be suicidal.
This is the warning call at COP24 in Katowice, Poland. Governments, scientists and campaigners from around the world are trying to make a rule book for the Paris Climate Agreement. The venue is a former coal mine. How ironic. So what's come out of the conference? The EU and a number of developing countries pledged to strengthen their attempts at reducing greenhouse emissions. And nations agreed to consider new policies surrounding migrants who are displaced due to climate change. But precious little else was decided. Some of the world's biggest oil producers, the US, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Russia, moved to water down a report by the UN climate body which predicted the Earth's temperatures could warm to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels in just 12 years. Which would be disastrous for humanity. And the US sponsored an event promoting fossil fuels, which got the response it needed.
Under President Trump's leadership, the United States is experiencing economic growth at a record level while leading the world in reducing emissions. The administration's economic strategy is rejuvenating our economy, revitalizing our manufacturing base, benefiting American workers, creating jobs and encouraging innovation while safeguarding our environment.
It's not just the complex rule book for Paris Climate Accord, but also the pressure on countries to cut carbon emissions. And the small island states are feeling the heat of it the most and want global finances to account for their loss and damage.
We desperately need additional finance to deal with loss and damage resulting from decades of inaction. Disasters triggered by weather and climate cost the global economy $320 billion last year alone. It is no secret that the financial capacity of Vanuatu and other SIDS and LDCs to cope with these loss and damages has reached its limit.
But when has talking ever been enough?
Failing here in Katowice would send a disastrous message to those who stand ready to shift to a green economy. So I urge you to find common ground that will allow us to show the world that we are listening, that we care. Developed countries must scale up their contributions to jointly mobilize $100 billion annually by 2020.
Well, Joydeep Gupta is an environmental journalist who was actually at the conference. Here's what he had to say about it.
And the atmosphere right now is that of pessimism, because it looks like the best possible takeaway is going to be a lowest common denominator of all that is required to keep climate change at bay as far as possible. All the contentious issues, which are essentially about finance from developed to developing countries, are most probably going to get pushed to 2019. The fact that if they accept loss and damage as something that is actually happening, if they accept it legally at an international forum, then rich countries, mainly the US of A, they are scared that it may lead to compensation claims in court. Well, China has made enormous progress in the last 10-15 years, but in the last 1 year we see some signs of regress. Which is very worrying because new power plants are again being planned and are coming online in China, which had stopped for a very long time. In the last few years, it has been the top emitter in the world. Not its fault totally, since the developed world gets all its manufacturing done in China. That's but natural. But for the sake of its own people, China needs to do more. Given the current negotiating position of the US federal government, it probably would have been better if they were not in the negotiating rooms right now, because they're playing spoiler inside every room. Under the UN system, failure is not admitted, so a very watered down agreement will come out sometime probably on Saturday, and then it will be called a success, while all the tough decisions will be pushed to 2019.
Now, an Imam in a Saudi-funded mosque in the UK says he's been told not to preach there anymore. And he says it's because he criticised the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman.
Khashoggi's murder changed everything. And they wanted to make sure that nobody criticizes him. My phone call was from somebody within the centre who said, we don't need you here anymore. But I'm pretty certain it was because of my criticism of Mohammed bin Salman's autocratic, very dictatorial policies in the kingdom and even outside. I think the sacking was directly from the top, because I've been there for 22 years. And for 22 years, I've been free to speak out my mind. A lot of people from the mosque, vast majority to be honest, have expressed their dismay, utter disbelief. He's not a reformer at all. If anything, he is a murderous person who's who suffers from anger problem. He's very narcissistic, according to many reports and experts of that region. But Mohammed bin Salman, being very intolerant type of a person, couldn't tolerate it and immediately ordered anybody who criticizes him to be shut down. In many fronts, Mohammed bin Salman's policies have proven to be immature, trigger-happy, unsophisticated, and pretty destructive for Saudi Arabia and its people. People of Saudi Arabia actually wake up and realize that what they need is freedom, what they need is rule of law, and they need to have the right to elect and account their rulers. And I tell you, I will keep on speaking about the truth and justice and freedom and democracy for all people in all parts of the world.
Okay, next, British humour, one of the things we do best along with queuing and talking about the weather. And it was on display when the New York Times put out a tweet asking for readers to tell them of their experience of petty crime in London. What they got instead was a litany of British lols, like this.
A stranger tried to talk to me on the tube, so I reported him to the police because talking to strangers on the tube is illegal.
Ordered a tea, and they put the milk in first.
The queue on Black Friday outside the Regent Street Apple store wasn't straight.
I asked someone how they were, and they actually told me.
I went to London and someone double air kissed me hello. It's not bloody Paris.
Earlier this year, I was assured football was coming home.
That's pretty good. Now remember this cringy YouTube video we brought you earlier in the week? If you don't, here's a refresher. It's called Rewind and it's the YouTube year in review. But it suffered from one subtle flaw. It sucked. And YouTube's legion of users told them so. And then in their trolly way, they set out to make it the most disliked video in the site's history. And they succeeded. It's had 11 million dislikes in just over a week. Good for them. This is how YouTube responded.
New record. Oh, wait. Thanks to the creators that took part in Rewind and the community that responded. We hear what you're saying and we want to make next year better for all of you. Watch this space.
Now, the killing of a suspected terrorist by the French police has been covered widely by media around the world. Now, while it was breaking that Sharif Chakat had been shot dead on the French 24-hour news channel BFM, this happened.
Fin de l'histoire.
Daniel Cerdan.
Oui, en fait, c'est un gars qui était complètement esseulé. parce que à 6 h du matin, les gendarmes viennent avec la DGSI faire...
Yes, you are hearing that correctly. I Shot the Sheriff by Bob Marley and the Wailers is playing in the background. Seriously, it played for 1 minute and 57 seconds. Now, I've worked in TV for more than 10 years and never has a song with a title that's tangentially fitting to the story we're discussing started playing in the background at random. In fact, I'd be surprised if something like this has ever happened anywhere, ever. Well, social media are shocked, as you can imagine, saying things like it was totally surreal and questioning if they'd heard it correctly. This is what BFM had to say.
BFMTV special coverage of the death of the alleged shooter involved in the Strasbourg attack was disrupted on Thursday evening by background music. The technical team in charge of sound at our studio acknowledges the incident as a mistake in handling. An investigation is underway and hopefully will soon shed light. We apologize to our viewers for this incident, which was not done intentionally by us.
Well, that clears that up. All right, around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Friday. A girl has died of dehydration and shock on the US-Mexico border. She was 7 years old and from Guatemala. She, her father and her brother had left their homes in search of a better life in the USA. They were arrested by border agents on the 6th of December. She went into shock and started having seizures. She had a temperature of around 40 degrees Celsius and was taken to hospital where she died. Now, Donald Trump has demonized the people trying to gain access to the US as drug dealers, terrorists and criminals. This 7-year-old girl was none of those things. A statue of Mahatma Gandhi has been removed from a university in Ghana. It was taken down because a petition was started which called Gandhi racist. Now, there is a growing understanding amongst scholars that some of Gandhi's writing was racist when it concerned black Africans. Among other things, he wrote of his belief that Indians and British people came from a common stock, Indo-Aryan, saying they were better than the natives of Africa. This was in 1893 when he was 23. By 1906, he was praising black South African leaders for their efforts at self-rule. Now, those who brought the statue down said it was a matter of respect. The petition to remove the statue started in 2016. Its target was 2,500 signatures. So far, it has 2,223. Now, how Pharrell and Robin Thicke thought they'd get away with this has always been a mystery. But now they've been ordered to pay $5 million to the estate of Marvin Gaye after ripping off Got to Give It Up for Blurred Lines. Here's a song they stole from. Now, this is video from Virgin Galactic. It shows their first suborbital flight into the edge of space. It's another step towards commercial space travel. A bunch of people, 600 in fact, bought seats on their plane at $250,000 each. Now, the test flight was the first time that their vessel, Spaceship Two or VSS Unity, has made it into space. The pilots landed successfully in the Mojave Air and Spaceport in California. Now, once all this testing is done, those who've paid all that money will get to be in space for around 2 hours. Now, some students in Turkey say they have designed a chip that can detect early-stage cancer. It apparently uses a microelectric mechanical system to determine whether a patient's blood contains cancerous cells. They say it works in a similar way to devices that determine how much sugar is in a person's blood and hope that one day it'll be so cheap it'll be available to everyone.
Bu 5-10 yıl sonrasının şeker ölçüm cihazları gibi, tespit cihazları gibi bir kanser ölçüm ve ön tanı cihazları olması hedefleniyor. Bunlar insanların eczanelerden ulaşabileceği, evinde test yapabileceği ve kansere karşı kendine önlem alabileceği bir konuma getiriyor.
And last up, some cute video from Australia. It's of a couple of pups who will one day be used to catch bad guys. But at this stage, it seems they're having trouble tackling the stairs. A little pup named Quim eventually does make it down, opting to take the ramp rather than tackle those scary-looking steps. All right, that's all from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. Follow us and subscribe and see you again soon. you.